Billions of dollars is flowing into Bitcoin, but why is the price not rallying? Bitcoin looks stuck at $110,000. We've got billionaires, bankers, and Bitcoin treasury companies accumulating more than 500,000 Bitcoin in the past 12 months. And everybody's kind of sitting back and scratching their head a little bit and asking themselves the question, why is the price of Bitcoin not rallying? What we know for sure is that hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin is leaving the exchanges. We can see that very clearly. The supply suffocation, it's accelerating. We're seeing more and more Bitcoin leave the exchanges. We're seeing more and more billionaires adopt Bitcoin, but nobody knows what's happening. Everybody's saying, is it paper Bitcoin? Are exchanges suppressing the price of Bitcoin? Or is maybe something funky happening in the options market and the derivatives market that is affecting the price? There's a lot of questions, there's a lot of theories, but today I want to explore what exactly is affecting the price of Bitcoin with my always optimistic co-host, Opti, and we've got, is it 2-time or 3-time bookseller, Brian DeMint. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on this whole idea of paper Bitcoin?
Let's pass it to Brian. Brian, you hit this one.
Yeah, well, yes. So Luke's spilling the beans here, but yeah, we got the third book on the way. So yes, it is 3-time author, but that's going to be in a couple months here. Children's book, actually not a Bitcoin related book. It has some scarcity things, but we'll get into that another time. But as far as what's going on, there's a term in physics called potential energy. When a rubber band is stretched, or a balloon, you blow up a balloon, there's this point at which you're wondering, why is the balloon not bursting? My kids hate when I blow up balloons because they know I like to pop them in their face, because it's hilarious as a father to see your kids just grimacing at what's about to happen. The balloon always takes way longer for it to burst. Elasticity means that not every balloon bursts at the exact same point. So we think about Bitcoin in that regard. We remember back to past cycles. We remember 2021 or 2017, and we say, you know what? When the news was hitting like this, or much smaller news, we in 2017, it was the Chicago Mercantile Exchange was going to have futures trading or whatever it was. I forget that popped off on the CME back in 2017, but that was what prompted the bull run. Was like, wow, regulatory clarity is coming around some of these instruments. And that was enough for things to pop off. We're in a completely different thing. The elasticity of this balloon is just different. We have different pools of capital. We have a higher supply of Bitcoin than we did a few years ago, and there's a meaningful amount of Bitcoin that is probably being sold by whales, because now whales can offload a little bit of their Bitcoin. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're foregoing their entire stack, but a whale who has 1,000 Bitcoin can sell 50 Bitcoin or 20 Bitcoin, and that's a meaningful amount of buying power for them in the economy. So we have to keep in mind that some of these things happen. Will a whale that has 1,000 Bitcoin sell more than his 50 Bitcoin or 100 Bitcoin? No, that actually stops at some point. Those OG whales will stop being providing liquidity for the over-the-counter market. And the thing that really makes the balloon pop, and by the balloon popping or the rubber band stretching and cracking, what I mean by that is not that the market breaks. I mean that price explosion happens. The thing that causes that to happen is when retail buyers like you and I we FOMO so hard, or not even you and I, but it's our friends. It's that second layer of retail adoption. It's when they hit the exchanges, because they're not timing their buys. They're not trying to buy a ton of Bitcoin and do it in a way that doesn't affect the price. When your friends come on board, they just want to smash buy Bitcoin, and that on the exchanges is what prompts these really high escalations in price. So the balloon is filling up. We're all standing around waiting for it to pop in our face. Don't worry, it's going to happen. We have this timidity about it, but the potential energy that's building up in Bitcoin is very, very real, and we're going to reach a critical mass. It just takes a bit of time for that to happen.
I love that idea of elasticity. I hope I said that word correctly, but that's exactly what it's like. You're pulling back that rubber band, and most people only start paying attention to Bitcoin when that thing pops or when the beach ball under the water comes back above the water. We're all seeing it right now. We're seeing all of the fundamentals get more and more bullish every single day. We're watching coins leave the OTC desks, billionaires buying Bitcoin, a surge of public companies sticking Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And the Bitcoiners who are paying attention to all of these fundamentals and news headlines, we're just waiting for the inevitable. And I think it's really interesting today. We've got what? Bitcoin $110,000 and retail isn't even here. Retail search for Bitcoin on Google Trends is at like bear market lows, which is pretty crazy. You mentioned something something else that was really interesting there, Brian, and that was Bitcoin on OTC desks. And we pull that thing up, we've seen about 80% of all the available Bitcoin on OTC desks disappear over the past 5 years. And again, you make it, again, something else you said that was really interesting was that the big money buys on these OTC desks. So I'm not surprised that the price hasn't surprised us yet, and that beach ball hasn't quite popped out of that water yet and really started surprising everyone yet, because there's still about 150,000 Bitcoin left on these OTC desks. And I think when this hits zero, I think that's when things get really interesting. Again, who knows when that is going to happen? Again, we have seen that in 2022, there was about 500,000 Bitcoin on OTC desks. Now there's about 150,000 Opti. What do you think is going to happen when that beach ball pops its head above water?
Yeah, I mean, this chart right here is pretty crazy. Like, I think I've pushed back a little bit on this narrative, Luke. I know we like to say there's price suppression. You know, someone's got to be clamping down on the price of Bitcoin right now because it should have been popping right now. I know Nico's even been on here, and I was trolling him before the show with Brian. Like, he goes through the cycle of like being bullish and then being a perma bear. And I just keep saying, like, dude, just wait. Like, just give it some time. It's going to rip by the end of the year. Like, it almost has to rip, right? But when you see this OTC desk chart one that's been circulating recently, of course, we've all seen the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges. That seems to be dwindling. But this OTC desk chart is really interesting. I mean, what is this? Going back to 2018, it's at the lowest it's ever been, or not ever, but it's at the lowest amount of Bitcoin on an OTC desk since 2018. That's what, 7 years? Like, all this is basically saying to me that at a certain point, this price has to rip. It like that. No other conclusion comes to my mind than the fact that it has to rip. Now, I'm not really that big on the idea of Bitcoin prices being manipulated, it's being suppressed. From all the data that I've been seeing, it just seems like there's more sellers. I know we've brought up the metrics here. A lot of the whales, as Brian was saying, you know, they are kind of, you know, distributing some coins out there. We've seen nation states dump 50,000 plus coins. We still don't know what's going on with U.S. and China's Bitcoin reserves. They could also be selling Bitcoin. So as much as I like to have a knee-jerk reaction and say like, oh, someone's suppressing the price. You know, Larry Fink's here, and of course he's going to suppress the price. On that same kind of tidbit, it's like that's good for all of us here. We all want cheaper Bitcoin. We all want to get a bigger piece of the pie. So I'm not really too convinced that there is quote-unquote price suppression of Bitcoin. Yes, we've heard kind of the mechanics of how short markets and futures markets have been working, and that can potentially cause some price suppression in the short term, but in the long term, it's bullish. I'm still kind of open to the idea that maybe there's some paper Bitcoin that we aren't aware of. I don't think it's anything on the scale of what happened with FTX, where they literally had no Bitcoin and they were selling fake Bitcoin basically to people. So I really just think it's more of a timing thing. I think the market just still needs to kind of figure out that, yeah, there isn't that much Bitcoin. The amount of buys, I don't know if you have a chart here, Luke, of the amount of liquidity coming in, but yeah, we do have a lot of these stories of, you know, billion-dollar buys for these Bitcoin treasury companies. but we really haven't seen the FOMO craze that we've seen in the past when it comes to people buying Bitcoin just on the open market. So I think it's really like a timing thing. I think it's kind of what Brian was saying. It's an elastic thing. It's like right now the balloon is filling up. You know, the supply of Bitcoin is dwindling, but it's just not enough to really push up the price yet. And we will get to a point, I think, probably pretty soon. I'm kind of leaning towards, you know, it might be a slow summer. Again, I've been saying this. It's probably going to be a slow summer, guys. You have a chance to stack some Bitcoin, and then going into September and October, November is when we're really going to see this price start ripping. But what else do you have here, Luke?
So I got some numbers here on just how much Bitcoin's being bought by the public companies. So as you can see, we've got around, right now at the time recording, this is more like 900,000 Bitcoin that's being bought by these Bitcoin treasury companies. I think that's interesting. I'm more interested in the ramp up recently and how this is beginning to, I want to be careful with my words. It is going parabolic, but the number of Bitcoin treasury companies is the number that I'm watching really closely. We can see here there's 258 entities right now. So these are public companies, private companies, governments, and ETFs that hold Bitcoin. And that little tiny green number here in the top right-hand corner of that little, we'll call it a toggle, a little square, we've seen 22 of these new entities put Bitcoin on the balance sheet in the past 30 days. That's kind of crazy when you start looking at what is the average amount of Bitcoin on the balance sheet from these entities. I ran the numbers last week, and it was about 6,000 Bitcoin is the average amount of Bitcoin sat on the balance sheet for these publicly traded companies. So if you start crunching the numbers and you say, hang on a minute, we've got 22 new treasury companies coming online every month. It's what, about 4.5 a week? If they're putting 6,000 Bitcoin on the balance sheet each, again, over some time, we're not saying they're launching with 6,000 Bitcoin, but if they aspire to acquire, that's a little bit of a rhyme, 6,000 Bitcoin on the balance sheet, all of a sudden you start running the numbers and you're like, hang on a minute, 450 Bitcoins mined every day. These guys alone are buying like 15 days worth of supply each. And we're nearly seeing 4.5 of these guys added every single week. So I think it's the trend, Opti, that has me most concerned. Yes, we're seeing a lot of Bitcoin on the balance sheet by these treasury companies, but it's kind of like, it's the trend and it's how fast it's accelerating that has me interested. I think this bull run, a lot of people have been looking around saying, why aren't altcoins outperforming Bitcoin? Right? In 2017, it was the ICO mania that led to this big wave of crypto outperforming Bitcoin. In 2020 and 2021, I think that bull run was cut short, but we saw a little bit of this NFT hype and this NFT mania. And this cycle, all of the altcoiners who are in my DMs saying, Luke, what's happening? My bags aren't pumping like yours. What's going on here? I think what they're missing this cycle could be the fact that maybe because the buyer is different this cycle, maybe the kind of things that outperform Bitcoin could be different. So again, this cycle I think is being dominated by the big money, billionaires, sovereign wealth funds, public companies, literal nation states are putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Do we really think these guys are going to be setting up a MetaMask wallet and aping into poo coins on SushiSwap? I don't think so. I think these guys, if they want to try to outperform Bitcoin, I think they're going to try to do it in the public markets and buy trusted companies, publicly traded companies that have 5, 10, or even 20 years of a track record of being a publicly traded company like MicroStrategy. People forget this company is like 25, 30 years old now. It's not like this flash in the pan cryptocurrency that just popped up on SushiSwap last week. We're not seeing that this cycle. So again, that's just kind of my thoughts on this 2025 cycle. Brian, Opti, I'd love your thoughts on, is this cycle going to be different? I know a lot of people are saying, the 4 most unpopular words are in investing are what? This time is different, but I don't know. I kind of feel like it is. I'd love your thoughts on it.
I think you're absolutely right. And I'll say why I think you're right on that for 2 reasons, Luke. One, like Michael Saylor has famously said, Bitcoin's either going to 1 million or zero. So I'm not regurgitating that. I'm saying that for the public, you noted that plus 22 publicly traded entities have added to or added a Bitcoin treasury. I'll say instead of the 1 or 0 or the 1 million or zero on Bitcoin, I'll say either all publicly traded companies will have Bitcoin on their balance sheet or eventually none will have it. There's no reason with what we know about Bitcoin, what it is as good, sound money, scarce, pristine collateral if somebody needs to borrow against it, any of those qualities that Bitcoin has, it does not make sense for Bitcoin just to be like 15% of publicly traded entities would have it on their balance sheet. It's either good enough for all of them to have it and they will all chase it, or eventually the people who do hold it will realize that this wasn't worth their time and they will get rid of it. It's either zero or all. And so which way do you think this is going? Well, the numbers seem to indicate that this is going towards all of them eventually having it. And why would all of them want to have it? I mean, Metaplanet is showing this in Japan. We're seeing, if you're familiar with the dollar milkshake theory, we understand that the US is going to be the last one to have this problem of credit. The biggest credit bubble in history is happening around the world simultaneously all at once. If you're a publicly traded company, one of the things you need to do, the reason why you're publicly traded in the first place is so that you have access to capital from investors. One of the benefits of Bitcoin on your balance sheet is it gives you another tool to access capital if you ever need it. Because again, Bitcoin, whether you and I would do this, borrow against your Bitcoin, I actually have no problem with it. I think it's a great way to go. It's better than selling your Bitcoin. If a publicly traded company holds Bitcoin on their balance sheet, they now have an instrument by which they can borrow against. And over time, their company is going to have access to more and more capital. When credit is bursting around the world, when fiat currencies are bursting around the world, the lifeline, the life raft for your publicly traded company will be Bitcoin. So again, are all of the publicly traded companies going to have Bitcoin on their treasury or none of them? I think it's going to be all of them.
I think that's such a good point. Again, CK from the Human Rights Foundation eventually kind of drilled something into my head back in like 2020. He said, like, the most unlikely outcome for Bitcoin is it's just another asset. It kind of just sits at about 500,000 or $1 million a coin, like most people think it will. So many people in Bitcoin think, okay, Bitcoin will be this $20 trillion market cap asset. It'll be worth a million big ones, $1 million. And it'll just be like a version of digital gold. And we'll still have a $100 trillion equity market. We'll still have a $350 trillion real estate market. We'll still have a $300 trillion debt market. And then there'll just be little old Bitcoin. It'll be worth $20 trillion and nobody will care about it. It'll be a pet rock, as Warren Buffett calls gold. And I think that is the most unlikely outcome. If you look at three scenarios, I think Bitcoin either dies and it's worth zero, or it is worth tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars a coin, and it represents at least 50% of the global wealth in the world today. We got $900 trillion of capital. Everything is grossly mispriced because it's looking for money. It's looking for a safe place to sit. So either Bitcoin is what we think it is the best savings vehicle in human history forever. And if it is that, then the majority of the world's wealth that is looking for a safe place to go will want to flow into Bitcoin. Again, I'm not saying Bitcoin will eat all of the $900 trillion in the world. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that at least half of the money in the world that's looking for a safe place, it will move to Bitcoin. Again, I'm not saying real estate's going to zero. Real estate's going to have value, but it's going to eventually shrink to its utility value. And if you look at real estate pre-1970, before we blew up this massive debt bubble and we left the gold standard, real estate was priced at, I think the average home cost something like 2 to 3 times the average person's income. If you look in my neck of the woods, Australia, the average home in Sydney, Australia is like 22 times the average person's income. In Toronto, it's like 15. LA, it might be a little bit lower, but it's still like 7 to 10, which is still grossly higher than the long-term utility value of real estate. So again, to your point, Brian, I think it's a great one. I personally believe Bitcoin is all or nothing Bitcoin is worth tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars a coin, or it's worth zero. I genuinely just think these models predicting Bitcoin to be worth $1 million or $2 million in 2040. I think they're extrapolating false data. I don't think we should be trusting fancily drawn lines on charts because they're not actually able to encapsulate the 7,000 year history of money that we've got. And because every single monetary transition we've seen, it's all or nothing. Like, again, how many people are storing value in silver today? 0.01%. Nobody. Why is that? And that's because when better money comes along, it completely obsoletes prior money, and it's all or nothing. It's the same with gold today. Well, gold was money in the 1800s. How many people store money in gold? Okay, we got $900 trillion of wealth. Gold's $21 trillion. 0.02% of the world still uses gold as money. It's been completely obsoleted. So again, if we think Bitcoin's better money, it's going to take the majority of the world's wealth. So the idea of it being $1 million, I personally think that's ludicrous. But again, Opti, feel free to just rein me in a little bit here.
Luke, the chat's saying you're being bearish today, so I don't know. Make of that as you will. And Brian, there, I don't know if I need to bring it up here, but the chat remembers Luke came on last week and was saying like the most ridiculous price prediction for where Bitcoin was going. So he's not living up to his bull-tardedness here on today's show. But I think Brian made a really good point, and you guys are both basically summing up how I believe it. It's like Bitcoin is either going to zero or it's going to something crazy. And I really don't believe it's going to zero at this point. Anyone that's saying it's even going down to like 15, 20K, I'm still like, I don't know what you're looking at with everything we're seeing. I don't think that's even a possibility here. You know, there's still people saying it's going to 8K or whatever the memes were last cycle. But I think what Brian was saying is really kind of one of the main points. And whether you like Bitcoin treasuries or not, I think every company, if they are a well-run, functional company, will have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Now, does that mean that they're all going to be these, strategy at the market, preferred stock, convertible notes type company? I don't think so. I think those are going to be far and few in between. But every country, every country, every company, and every individual will have Bitcoin in some form in their portfolio, or rather as their savings. And I think that's the future we're heading at. As we've been saying, it is kind of a zero-sum game. It's like, do people still use salt? Do people still use rocks? Whether it's a gold rock or a huge, shaped rock out there, do we still use seashells? It's like, no, we have a better money technology, and it's only a matter of time until the world kind of wakes up to this. And we're still early. And I think the main point here that Brian said that I think a lot of us forget, and we have been saying this for a while on the show, like, again, I don't want to be the this time is different guy, but this time is definitely different. And the reason I'm saying that, not so much in the sense of this market structure, the price structure of Bitcoin, the 4-year cycle is different. But what we do know to be different is the person that is interested in Bitcoin. Like the investor is different now in Bitcoin. It's not just retail that's driving the price. Now we have literally the biggest institutions and potentially nation states that are fundamentally driving this price. So whether this means that the Bitcoin cycle is different, whether that means the Bitcoin cycle is over, etc., I don't necessarily know or think that that is the case, but we do know one thing. The narrative around Bitcoin is different. The investor that is interested in Bitcoin is different. And I think whether that happens this year or whether that happens the next 5 years, one thing is for sure, like, things are fundamentally changing and the Bitcoin market is maturing in real time. And that comes with a lot of things that maybe don't align perfectly with the, initial libertarian type Bitcoiner. But I think we all, if you looked at this, even how Finney was saying this in the beginning, if you understand the game theory of Bitcoin and how it plays out, the financialization of Bitcoin and how it plays out, this was all going to happen, and it is happening according to plan. So I don't know if this cycle is necessarily different. I'm still convinced, end of year, it's going to be bullish. You guys are probably going to have a good summer of stacking. Hopefully you don't take your foot off the gas here. But I still think end of the year, we're gonna get some crazy price movement. It's just it's going to be a slow summer.
And what's crazy is we view this as a great time to stack. We're having all-time high weekly closes, all-time high monthly closes, and the perception is this is a good time to stack. To your point, Opti, is this time different? Yes, this time's different. When Bitcoin was at 69,000, nobody saw that as a good time to stack. It was frothy. I mean, new guys saw it as a good time to get in, but they weren't dollar cost averaging. They were taking every dollar they had and buying Bitcoin for the first time. This time is different. We can see it. It's not theory that it's different. It actually is different. Bitcoin's 109,000, and we're like, yes, thank God that it's staying this low. The price, think about what mechanisms move the price. Again, coming back to the basics, it's at the margin. The only people that think Bitcoin is worth $109,000 are those very few people that are selling it right now. What do 99.99% of people that hold Bitcoin think the price is? They think it's something higher than this. That's why the price isn't going lower than it is right now. They think it's going higher. So what is the democracy of Bitcoin holders telling us? It's telling us that the price is higher. You and I think this is a good time to buy. Every indication shows that that balloon is stretched very, very big, but it's not bursting yet. Patience, my friend.
Hey, Luke, we have a good question here, and I'm going to pose it to you guys. This is Muddy Oaks Homestead. He says, okay, say what we're saying is correct. So what do you think what do you believe the catalyst will be to pump towards the year end? Like, what is our thinking here? What is going to pop this balloon? I'm going to pose it to you first, Luke.
Yeah, so for me, it's just eventually the supply shock that we've seen in Bitcoin will be manifested in the market. Brian, again, has not only made a great analogy. I love that with the hot air in the balloon as well. I like that one. It's a different perspective I haven't thought about. But eventually, like, this idea of the supply shock will hit the market. So again, people know what's triggered Bitcoin bull runs to happen every 4 years. Again, there's still a debate on this topic. Is it macro or is it the halving? But if I look at both of those things, both of them are set up to be incredibly bullish over the next 12 months. So the 4-year liquidity cycle looks as if we are just due now for a large amount of money to be printed, and interest rates are still very high. This is what a lot of people miss. Bitcoin, the first time around back in 2021, when it ran up to $65,000 a coin, what brought Bitcoin down? Bitcoin was brought down by the fastest interest rate hiking schedule in history. And a lot of these macro tech bros were said, oh, the only reason that Bitcoin rallied from 4K to 65K in 2020 to 2021 was because we were in this 0% interest rate environment. Bitcoin's just a speculative high beta tech stock. It's like beta on the NASDAQ. This is the understanding of your typical macro bro back in 2020 and 2021 who was caught on the sidelines, again, scratching their head saying, why is Bitcoin outperforming my bags and everything else? Well, that was the explanation they put on Bitcoin. And when interest rates were raised at the fastest pace in history back in 2021 and 2022, Bitcoin crashed. And these guys were proven right for them. But now Bitcoin's kind of come back from the dead. And right now it's at $110,000, but interest rates are still pretty high. So all of a sudden that narrative of Bitcoin just pumping in a low interest rate environment has been absolutely swept under the rug. It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So I think interest rates are still high. So if they are lowered, this could be huge moon juice for Bitcoin. We could be putting moon juice into our rockets, okay? This could be incredibly bullish for Bitcoin. We have global money supply hasn't even started expanding yet. So we always walk through these numbers here on the channel. Each 4 years, we see global money supply expand aggressively, and it correlates with Bitcoin bull runs. So in 2012 and 2013, global money supply increased by like 22%. Bitcoin rallied by 100x. 2016, 2017, we saw this 4-year wave of global liquidity happen again. Liquidity expanded in 2016, 2017 by like 26% globally. Bitcoin pumped 20x. Same thing in 2020. Global M2 rose by about 50%. Bitcoin rallied by 5x. And now, over the past 2 years, the global money supply has only expanded by like 4%. So again, if you look at previous bull runs, and these waves of 4-year global liquidity, we haven't even seen it start to actually like increase yet. Although it is increasing now at the fastest pace in about 3 to 4 years, showing us that we're in the early stages of liquidity expanding over the next 6 to 12 months. So I think that's catalyst number one. It's a long way to explain it, but global liquidity, I think, is about to expand. And we've got data showing that Bitcoin reacts positively when this happens. And then, of course, we got the halving. So we all know the halving typically triggers Bitcoin price booms. Bitcoin typically peaks in these bull runs about 12 to 18 months after the halving historically. We had the halving back in 2024. It's now mid 2025. People are kind of looking around, once again, asking themselves the question, what's happening? So I think when we've got the halving, we've got global liquidity, and then we've got a third catalyst that most people aren't even talking about. And that is, I think, the double halving that's being created in Bitcoin that's just kind of taken effect. And the double halving is looking at the Bitcoin and the supply that's being ripped off the exchanges from these new entities who we continue to talk about: billionaires, nation states, public companies. Again, let's not forget, there's about 164,000 Bitcoin mined a year, and these entities have just bought like 500 to 600,000 over the past 12 months. So I think they are creating a little bit of a halving in and of itself, just by the amount of Bitcoin that they're pulling off the exchanges, that I don't think is going to return to the exchanges. So again, I think we've got three catalysts that make me super bullish in the short or the medium term. Again, I always tell you guys, who knows where the price of Bitcoin is going in the short or the medium term? I have no idea, and you certainly shouldn't trust a kid with this haircut on the internet to tell you where the price of Bitcoin is going in the short or the medium term. But I think in the long term, I think the fundamentals that we continue to kind of go back to here on Simply, I think that's what makes me super bullish. But Brian, I'd love your take.
Yeah, I mean, beautifully said. And I don't think I've necessarily thought about it like that, that Bitcoin has gone to new all-time highs in loose credit, under a loose credit policy. It's gone under tight credit policy. Like, it shows that Bitcoin's eating whatever type of monetary policy is on the table. That brilliant. I mean, it got me extra pumped here. I don't know what I'm more bullish on though, is what you just said, or the Luke's hair comments. if guys go to YouTube and go through the comments, these are freaking hilarious. What I appreciate about the Trump administration is we, as conservatives or libertarians over the last few years, we've gotten used to Nancy Pelosi and her husband making the most brilliant stock picks ever, right? They outperform every hedge fund because they've called it right every single time. But we always found out afterwards, right? It was in their reporting as public officials, where they had to kind of report these things after the fact. What is the Trump administration and the people in it, like Howard Lutnick, who's the Secretary of Commerce, which means he's in charge of the entire economy of the United States, like the domestic economy in the United States and all business in there. He's the secretary that reports to President Trump. What is he doing? What is Don Jr. doing? What is Eric Trump doing? These guys that know and that are on the inside, they know what policy. Not Howard Lutnick is not just, he doesn't just know what policy is about to come. He's helping formulate the policies that are about to come. He started his company, Cantor Fitzgerald, started a Bitcoin acquisition company. Don Jr., Eric Trump, these guys are either doing mining companies or Bitcoin acquisition companies. They're telling the public, I'm doing whatever I can under any financial instrument I possibly can, or any type of entity I can create right now. I'm going to buy and hold Bitcoin. And they're going to conferences and telling people that that's what they're doing. It'd be like if Nancy Pelosi told you 10 years ago she was going to be buying NVIDIA or anything that she was doing public policy around. We would say, you know what, at least, yes, she's going to benefit from that. She's using her knowledge to enrich herself. But at the same time, at least she's going to conferences and telling people ahead of time, this is what she's doing before any kind of legislation or bureaucratic, protocols are put around these types of things. And so what's happening? Why am I bullish? The writing is on the wall. The people who hold the power to say, like, we know what's right around the corner in terms of United States, the most powerful, richest country in human history. We know what they're about to do. And what we're doing personally and in our personal and in our businesses is we're buying as much of this particular asset as we possibly can. If that was beans or if that was corn and they were buying up as much as they can, I would be buying beans or corn as well, because I'd say, you know what, these guys that know what policy is coming up, they're buying a lot of beans and corn. What are they buying? They're buying Bitcoin, and they have no intention of selling it. The writing's on the wall. And there's a lot of transparency in this. So whether you think that these guys are good or bad, that's not what matters. They're telling you what's happening. There's no reasonable way to think that Howard Lutnick is buying as much Bitcoin and holding as much Bitcoin as he possibly can because negative Bitcoin legislation or negative Bitcoin policy is going to happen in September. So why do we keep saying September is this date? It's because the crypto czar, David Sachs, says that that's when these things are going to start to roll out. This is when Trump right now is talking about tariffs. He's talking about the war in Iran and Israel. He does these things in stages. And so better believe it, Trump has an agenda, like literally a calendared agenda. And I think what everybody's telling us is in September, Trump is going to be turning his focus, his rhetoric, his bully pulpit towards Bitcoin and what they want to do from a pro-Bitcoin position. Every time Trump gets on the mic about a particular issue, everybody starts talking about it. And that's what's coming. That's in part why I'm bullish.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. I mean, mine, you guys got into a lot more intricate takes than I would have. I'm a simple, 40. I think my IQ is dropping. I think now it's like 43. I think I'm at 43 IQ now. My catalyst is simple. Just more people buying, which means the price goes up. And as the price goes up, more people start buying. Like it's as simple as that. It's a self-fulfilling feedback loop. What we all know, whether who said this here? Someone just said it in the chat. Satwise Jenks. He goes, I've been in Bitcoin for so long. Like at this point, I don't even look at the Bitcoin price. And I have always been joking forever. Like that is true Bitcoin Zen there, where like, yes, you look at the price. Yes, it's like, you get a good dopamine rush, but you really kind of don't care. All you really care about is, are you acquiring more sats? Well, that's like when you're at the very bottom of the rabbit hole. For most people, they care about the price. When they see the price start ripping, that's when they want to buy it. I don't know why humans are like this, but as the price goes up more, that's when they really want to buy Bitcoin. It really does remind me of the meme going around for a while. Bitcoin as a Veblen good. The more expensive it gets, the more people want to buy it. And then, like, if you like Bitcoin at 100K, you probably like it at 58K. Like, it's just on discount. It makes no sense to me how people can look at Bitcoin, hit all-time highs, it pulls back, and they're like, yeah, you know what, actually, I want it to go lower because, I want to buy more of it. And then it goes lower, and then they don't buy it. But then Bitcoin starts ripping, and they're like, actually, I need to buy this now because it might never come down to these prices again. So I really think it's just a feedback loop. As we've been seeing, we're seeing all kinds of institutional demand for Bitcoin. The ETFs have literally just scooped up. I think it was 1.24 million overall. The BlackRock ETF in itself, I think it's at like 600 or 700,000 coins right now. Corporate treasuries, as Luke was explaining earlier, buying a shit ton of Bitcoin. It's like, as these companies, institutions, nation states, and individuals, some of the wealthiest people in the world start to buy Bitcoin, it just starts becoming a no-brainer for people. And then once enough people get there, then everyone wants to buy it. But it really does revolve around the price of Bitcoin. As it goes up, people want to buy it. I don't know why humans are like this, but it's as simple as that. As more people buy, the price goes up. As the price goes up, more people buy. And then maybe we hit a critical point and we see a correction. But I think the catalyst is just simply the price starting to move with more people coming in. Like, it's as simple as that to me.
Yeah, you mentioned Veblen good. I know we have a jam-packed show, but remind me after the break to ask me about a Veblen threshold, because I think Samson Mao has a really good thesis on what is a Veblen threshold and what happens when Bitcoin reaches that. I think we should dive into that. But
yeah, actually, we'll scrap the numbers. We'll do Veblen threshold in the numbers today. Yeah, guys, we're running way late. I just looked at the time. We're running super late on today's show. But hey, you guys like more shows. So if you like this content, of course, smash the like button. Comment on the show. What is going to be the catalyst to make the Bitcoin price go up? And of course, hit the subscriber button, guys. We're dropping the best content, period. We drop the most content and the best content. And on that note, guys, I do want to give a shout out to our partners, of course, Bitcoin Well. If you want to buy Bitcoin, go to bitcoinwell.com. They have never lost a sat. They will never lose a sat because when you buy Bitcoin from them, they send it directly to you in your Bitcoin wallet. This is the best way. We talk about this constantly. We think self-custody is the revolution. It's not just enough to buy Bitcoin and leave it on an exchange. You need to buy Bitcoin and secure that Bitcoin. Hold the keys for yourself. Do not get caught up buying fake Bitcoin. You want to buy the real thing, and Bitcoin Well makes sure that you receive every sat you've bought from them. Of course, guys, when you sign up and you go to bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc, scan the QR code, you get 3 chances to win 1 million sats. So they are giving you guys free Bitcoin. This is the way. All right, guys, we got. I'm running late, so I got to keep going.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
All right, guys, let's just go over some quick numbers while we continue this conversation. So, of course, the Bitcoin price today is currently at $108,900 per Bitcoin. It's a decline of negative 2.8% from all-time high. We're currently sitting around a $2.17 trillion market cap. And then, of course, the current block height is 904,624. So I am pivoting right now because Luke brought up something good. So let's talk about, you said Veblen threshold. So as I explained, a Veblen good is a simple idea. Don't let the big word kind of confuse you here. It's just basically, you know, a good, something that you buy that as it gets more expensive, it kind of makes people want to buy more of it. Think of it like a, you know, a car or like a painting or like a Rolex watch, something that kind of gives you status. It's luxury, but as it gets more expensive, instead of kind of persuading people not to buy it, it makes them want to buy it more. That's like a layman's term of what a Veblen good is. But Luke introduced this new idea of a Veblen threshold. I feel like I'm familiar with this. I've definitely heard this, but Luke, the floor is yours. What is the Veblen threshold? You're muted. I think you're muted. Oh, there you go. Yeah, you're delayed. Your thing's delayed. Yeah. All right. There you go.
So and I was interviewing Samson one day, and we were talking about a Veblen good, and then he threw back at me, oh, well, Bitcoin's actually going to hit a Veblen threshold. I was like, what is that? My mind was broken on the interview. I couldn't think, and I've been thinking about it a lot, and it kind of makes a lot of sense. Like, most people are used to Bitcoin kind of going parabolic in bull runs, and then you see a big capitulation afterwards. But there could be a world in the future where Bitcoin's going on a bull run, and there's some sort of a threshold that is reached, and all of a sudden there's no capitulation afterwards. It literally is going up forever, Laura. So that is kind of the idea of a Veblen threshold. Bitcoin hits some sort of a critical mass or a critical tipping point where I think the volatility actually explodes. A lot of people sharing the chart of Bitcoin doing diminishing returns. Again, each bull run, it's getting smaller and smaller. 2013, we got 100x. 2017, we got a 20x. 2020, we got a 5x. Everybody's saying, oh, we're going to get 3x this bull run because of diminishing returns. Again, I see the data. I just don't think that's going to be how Bitcoin is monetized. I think we are going to be in a bull run one day, and there's some sort of a critical tipping point. I don't know what the price tag is going to look like. I don't know when it is going to come, but the thesis is how I think Bitcoin is going to get adopted. And it is my base case that Bitcoin gets adopted in some really strange exponential curves, because it's just what happens. Eventually, there's going to get to a point where there's no Bitcoin on the exchanges, there's no Bitcoin on the OTC desks, and all of a sudden, there could be trillions of dollars in the fixed income market or the debt market that wants to get out and wants to buy Bitcoin. And you got to think about this. Yes, I agree with everybody who says, but Luke, there will always be sellers of Bitcoin. There will, 100%. There's going to be people selling Bitcoin. There's going to be OG holders selling Bitcoin. But at that Veblen threshold, where there's no Bitcoin on the exchanges and there's no Bitcoin on the OTC desks, your hodlers could be selling 1 million coins like they did in 2024 and 2025. OG Bitcoin hodlers sold 1 million Bitcoin. That is true. That's a fact. But they could put 1 million Bitcoin on the exchanges in the future. But if you've got just $5 trillion from the $315 trillion fixed income market that is trying to come into Bitcoin, the corrections are going to be very shallow. They're not going to be these 80% corrections like we used to. I expect volatility is going to actually explode when we hit this Veblen threshold, and the spikes in the volatility we see on the chart are going to be much more like the volatility that we saw during the German hyperinflation way back in the 1920s. Most people would have seen the chart, and it has overlaid on the chart of gold priced in German marks. It has the volatility overlaid on it. And we saw like 80% corrections in 5 years. That's just how steep the volatility was. And the closer we got to the German mark hyperinflating, the more the volatility got. So again, I'm not saying the US dollar is going to hyperinflate tomorrow. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that Bitcoin's adoption is going to look more like that. The volatility is going to continue to get bigger and bigger the closer we get to it saturating its total addressable market cap. So a way that I think about this is I think the volatility is going to increase until we get to about $100 trillion market cap. When we get there, that's when we start talking about diminishing returns. I don't think we should be talking about diminishing returns and Bitcoin's volatility decreasing when it's 0.2% of the world's capital. It is the best savings vehicle in the world. It has a total addressable market cap of $900 trillion, and people are talking about diminishing returns at 0. It's ridiculous. So and that's kind of, let me know if you guys have any questions about this idea of a Veblen threshold, but it's a little bit of a difficult concept to wrap your mind around, and I had to think about it for weeks before I understood it. But I think it's a really interesting thought experiment.
Yeah, no, it's great. We did get I like this comment here in the chat. Winsome Hacks, it goes, that's not the case with Bitcoin. As Bitcoin gets more expensive, it de-risks. Weirdly, as the price goes up, it becomes more acceptable to conservative investors. And I think we're kind of saying the same thing. It's just like, you know, what's all parables or whatever, like it really doesn't necessarily relate to reality, but it just gives you a good map of what's going on, or rather, you know, the map and the terrain are completely different. But since we are dealing with something that is so completely alien, you know, alien technology, something that we haven't really seen ever in any one of our lifetimes, you do kind of use these different examples to kind of grasp just the basic ideas of what's going on. But I do agree with what Winsome is saying. Like, as the price gets more, as it becomes more saturated in the culture, it completely gets de-risked. Like right now, I think it's the least risky time to be buying Bitcoin. And I think all of us feel this way, even though there's still people that are like, it's 100K, it might dump. And you're like, it doesn't really matter at this point. This is the least risky time to be buying it. But back to your point, Luke, I do kind of agree with you at a certain point that, and I don't know where, we obviously don't know where that is, but there will be a point where the diminishing returns meme just like isn't viable anymore. I believe in the S-curve adoption of Bitcoin. It's a new technology. I don't even think we've seen the S-curve yet. Like we haven't seen the parabolic move of the S-curve. We're still kind of in the early innings of Bitcoin adoption. If you know the S-curve, it's like, wait, can I do it on here? Wait, no. How do I do it? All right, it goes, wait. Like that, and then it goes up. Sorry, it's hard to do it backwards. This is just the beginning of it, and there will be that point where, as the price goes up, there will be, an escape velocity, and it just starts ripping, and then eventually it'll taper off. I don't think it's there. Like it just. The sheer number and size of available capital that can come into Bitcoin, it doesn't make sense to me in regards to just a personal heuristic of all the people you talk about. Most people still think you're an idiot if you buy Bitcoin. Most people aren't comfortable with their life savings going into Bitcoin. Only us, psycho, what do they call it? Shadowy super coders, illiterate economists, or whatever they used to call us, are like, hey, we have literally nothing to lose here. Let's just go all in on this thing. It's going to take over. And people that have wealth are obviously more risk averse and they don't want to lose their wealth. Whereas if you're, a young kid, you probably got a couple $1,000s. Like I literally had like $200 when I first started with Bitcoin. And I was like, what's the problem with me losing this $200? Like I'm broke anyways. I'm going to spend it on freaking lunch tomorrow. Like, I really have nothing to lose. There's levels to this here, and I don't think we've gotten to a point yet where it's completely de-risked and people are that comfortable with going all in on Bitcoin. Even like the sailors out there, like, yeah, Sailor now is going all in, but when he started, he just bought like a little 10,000, Bitcoin at a time, like we don't even have the financial advisors out there saying, yeah, you should probably go 50%. We've seen it kind of inch up. It's like 1% to 2%. Then it went to 5%, then it went to 10%, and now we're going to like 40%. This is just beginning. Anyways, Brian, I think I kind of rambled there a little bit.
No, it was great. I think that Veblen threshold, I hadn't heard that term threshold. So I'm sitting here thinking about what is that threshold. It aligns, I think, with my thesis on the parallel economy and when the Bitcoin parallel economy is going to kind of manifest. It exists out there, right? People buy and sell goods in Bitcoin or buy and sell services in Bitcoin. That happens, but it doesn't necessarily happen at scale. Shout out. That's one of the great things about Orange Pill app is it's a great way to find those people if you are trying to participate in that economy. But all that to say is that most of us are familiar with the 4-step cycle of monetary adoption. So money, historically, if it gets widely adopted, its first phase is it starts out as a novelty or a collectible. The second phase is when it gets into the store of value phase. So people go beyond like, oh, this shiny gold rock is neat and I like to put it on my shelf. Oh, well, the store of value phase is when you realize that other people put it on their shelves as a collectible, and therefore you can capitalize on it as a store of value. The third phase is the medium of exchange phase, where people started to buy and sell things in gold. And then the fourth phase was the unit of account, when people actually kept their books in gold. That was kind of like the final boss of money, is if you can get to the unit of account phase. Well, we're clearly in the store of value phase. We've passed the collectibles phase. The collectibles phase was when you could get two pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. People didn't know how to correctly price Bitcoin, of course, or that's what its market value was at the time. And so it was clearly a collectible back then. Or when you could go to a website and click a button and get 5 Bitcoin every day for free, that was the Bitcoin collectible phase. Well, we're clearly in the store of value phase. The next phase that is going to come, if Bitcoin, if we all say it's good, sound money, we all say that it's the best form of money ever. So to me, it seems abundantly clear that the next phase is the medium of exchange phase. Whether you want to spend your Bitcoin or not, I believe that's where this is going. I believe that's the inevitable nature. And why is that phase so powerful for the buying power of Bitcoin, or you want to call it the price of Bitcoin? Because when Bitcoin gets used as money, it is never hitting the exchange. The exchange is where the price of Bitcoin gets suppressed. So when if I have a Bitcoin right now and I want to go buy a car, if I need to sell that Bitcoin, turn it into cash to go get the car, well, guess what? I'm suppressing the price of Bitcoin because I'm going to the exchange. But when enough people use it as a medium of exchange, it never has to touch the exchange. And who do I report to when somebody comes into one of my wellness studios and wants to buy, a cold plunge and sauna session, and they pay me in Bitcoin? Am I ever reporting that somewhere that, oh, some Bitcoin got exchanged and so the price of Bitcoin? No. That is secret exchange of money that never suppresses the price of Bitcoin. So not only is what Luke's talking about is going to happen, and these pools of capital that are coming from all corners of the world, but we're talking about pools of capital from people who actually don't have a lot of investable assets, but they do have money in their checking and savings account. And when the majority or all of that money in their checking and savings account turns into Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the best medium of exchange, we see a sticky price of Bitcoin. Again, that Veblen effect, or that Veblen threshold, where Bitcoin is going up forever. Well, why would the price of Bitcoin ever come down when people are now holding Bitcoin not in their savings account, but in their checking account? That is a different paradigm for Bitcoin, and I believe that's where we're headed.
Bars, absolute bars. Love that, Brian. The chat agrees with you on that. All right, guys. Again, I am running late on today's show, so I'm going to rip through this news story, and I really want to chat about what Brian is doing with Orange Pillap. So, again, I'm going to rip through the news story. We'll chat about it a little bit, but I'm really trying to get to what Brian's doing. I really think it's a noble thing here. So let's just get through the show.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Cold Card. If you're serious about self-custody, Cold Card is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet. There is no second best. The Cold Card Q is the ultimate air-gapped Bitcoin signing device, complete with a full keyboard, large screen, camera, NFC support, and much more. Do you prefer something sleeker? The MK4 is trusted by hardcore Bitcoiners around the world. Both are built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners, secure and open source. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 5% off with promo code SIMPLY. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today with Cold Card.
All right, guys, let's rip through this real quick. So Frank Corba, if you don't know who he is, political correspondent at the Bitcoin magazine. He's literally has a pass to be at the White House as one of the journalists. He tweeted this: a U.S. court has dropped CoinCenter's appeal to OFAC regarding Tornado Cash, but the developers behind the tech are still facing criminal charges. So looking at this, guys, and we've been talking about this going on for a long time, you know, historically, or rather very infamously on the show, there was one defining moment where Nico fully crashed out, and that's when the Samurai Wallet guys got arrested. But before that, when this case happened, we were seeing the writing on the wall, and this is when we came out very vocal in the November elections last year. So here we go. Headline: U.S. court brings CoinCenter's Tornado Cash appeal to a close. So CoinCenter's appeal to the U.S. Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Asset Control, aka OFAC, regarding Tornado Cash is now over. So one good thing out of this, but there's still a lot to go on. And before everyone's like, okay, this Tornado Cash, what's this have to do with Bitcoin? Guys, again, we said when this initially happened that this was a precedent being set to clamp down on privacy tools, not only in Bitcoin, but in the whole space, and that's exactly what happened here. So on July 3rd, 2025, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit agreed to end an appeal that crypto advocacy group CoinCenter, excuse me, CoinCenter made to OFAC regarding the Ethereum-based mixing service Tornado Cash. This decision by the court occurred approximately 2.5 months after the U.S. Treasury Department removed Tornado Cash from its OFAC sanctions list after having kept it on the list for over 3 years. The dismissal of this case officially ends CoinCenter's challenging OFAC's decision to include Tornado Cash on its sanctions list. And then you can see here Peter Van Valkenburg, executive director at CoinCenter, commented on X earlier today that the government did not want to continue to defend an interpretation of sanctions law that seemed too broad. So here it cuts off. I'm going to go here to the tweet, and it goes, this is the official end to our court battle over at the statutory authority behind the Tornado Cash sanctions. The government was not interested in moving forward and defending their dangerously overbroad interpretation of sanctions laws. Thank you again to our co-plaintiffs, Trustless State, who got dusted and said, bring it on, developer Patrick O'Sullivan, who simply hoped to get paid a salary with privacy, and our John Doe, who supported the defense of Ukraine on chain while dodging GRU countermeasures. Now going back to the article to really clear up some of the stuff here. This appeal being dropped comes in the wake of a memo from the U.S. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, in which he stated the U.S. Department of Justice will no longer target crypto technology like mixers. So again, on the one hand, a huge win, I would say, and hopefully we see something of the sort play out for Samurai. Of course, they're still on trial. But despite this fact, this appeal has been dropped and Tornado Cash is no longer on the OFAC sanctions list. The creators of this technology are still facing criminal charges. Tornado Cash co-founder and developer Roman Storm is scheduled to appear in federal court in the Southern District of New York on Monday, July 14th, so of next week. And then, of course, you can see later Alexei Pertsev, forgive me, he was found guilty of money laundering in May in the Netherlands and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. And the other guy, they don't know where he is. So on the one hand, I think this is a good step towards what we would like to see here at Simply Bitcoin. Of course, famously, ever since the Samurai Wallet arrest is when we kind of crashed out on the show, and we took a very, very strong line in the sand here. So it looks like what we've been seeing around from the Trump administration and all the other institutions associated, they are seemingly going to kind of walk back a lot of the attacks that we've been feeling as an industry, whether you're in shitcoins or not. On the other side, let's hope for the best for these developers because, again, I think that's going to be precedent moving forward, and really in hopes that this gets cleared out so that the Samurai Wallet guys also get cleared of something very similar. So, you know, I don't know if you guys want to touch on that real quick. I think it's a good thing to see kind of that they are pulling back a little bit. We'll still have to wait and see what happens next week. You know, who knows what really happens when it comes to the courts here. But I'm feeling optimistic here. It does seem like with Trump coming in, they are actually doing a good thing for the Bitcoin industry or even the shitcoin industry at large. And hopefully we can minimize these attacks for the next 3 years and further. So tentatively bullish on this. You guys want to do a quick take, and then let's rip it over so that we can chat about what Brian is doing over there at Orange Pill App. Luke, I know you've been on the beat for a while, so what's your thoughts on this? And then we'll pass it to Brian and keep it moving. I think you're muted, or yeah, you're muted, or there's a delay or something.
Yeah, I'll go. I think your mic fell. You
I
used
think
to
your
have a
mic's
mic on your
done.
shirt. But I think, okay, so one of the things, and whether you want to call these guys martyrs or whatever, one, just from a security standpoint, I think the altcoin industry acts as a moat for Bitcoin. It's a weaker target. It's a softer target for attackers, for politicians, for whoever it is that's coming after Bitcoin. So you can look at it that way, is that there's still kind of a moat around Bitcoin, whether you like that industry or not. But two, and if you don't want to call them martyrs for Bitcoin, that's fine. Maybe it's not the best analogy, but if you look at movements of history that permeate the entire world, that spread around the entire world, look at what happens to their martyrs. Like, for example, Ross Ulbricht was a martyr of Bitcoin. He's been freed. He's been pardoned. The martyrs of Bitcoin are actually gaining. They're propelling the movement forward. Movements that get snuffed out, that aren't impactful to history. We don't really know many of those stories off the top of our head because those stories are kind of irrelevant, but there's plenty of movements in history that tried to build steam and tried to change the world. But as soon as their leaders or the people that were kind of making the movement happen, as soon as they get imprisonment or fines or any kind of oppression, the movement gets shut down. And so, like, look at Christianity, for example. The early Christians were fed to lions. They were put in prison. They were stoned to death. And then you go a couple generations later, and now they're still being oppressed, but they're at least getting to get a voice before Caesar. They can go make their case before Caesar, even if they're still being oppressed. And then you go a couple generations after that, and now all of a sudden they're advisors to Caesar. Right? The path of the martyrs is one of the biggest indicators as far as the health of the future of your movement. If your martyrs go from being oppressed to being influential, or being oppressed to the release of oppression, then that's actually a very good sign that your movement has power in those upper echelons. It at least has a voice in those upper echelons.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more with that, Brian. Okay, Luke, are you back?
I'm back. I have a little magnetic clip on my microphone. It got stuck to my girlfriend's necklace. So I was trying to say.
What was going on over there?
Yeah, what are you doing on screen?
We'll keep it PG rated on the show. How about that? So what I was going to say before I had to go and retrieve my microphone was, I'm not bullish on freedom go up in the short term. In the long term, I am, because of things like what Brian is building with the Orange Pill app. But I think in the short term, I'm seeing some, let's call it, precedent set in America that I think is very optimistic. Like with Trump releasing Ross Ulbricht, maybe this sets a little bit of a precedent around the world, or especially in America, by saying, hey, you can build technology and put it out there in the world, and we're not going to come and arrest you just because we don't like the technology you're building. Again, think about that for a minute. Ross didn't commit a crime, and the guys at Samurai didn't commit a crime. I need to be careful with what I say so we don't get us in trouble, but I think people should be able to build technology. I don't think people should get in trouble for building or developing a technology that gets used by people we don't like. Again, I think that's kind of my just first principles view of the world. So I think I'm optimistic that in the short term in America, there's some sort of protection. But again, the reason why I said I'm only long-term bullish is because if you're in the UK or in my former home country, if you share a meme on Facebook, you could have police knocking at your door the next day. So again, I think we've got a little bit of a battle to go through over the next decade, especially Europe and a lot of the other Western countries that have lost their mind, like Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a longer battle for those guys, which is, again, why I'm so bullish on technologies that enable us to opt out. Again, there is tens of millions of Bitcoiners around the world, but it kind of sucks that we're all living in different countries. So again, I'm super bullish on encrypted technology that allows us to actually chat all around the world. They can't turn the internet off, despite some countries trying to buy a wallet like China. They can't stop communications. Super bullish on Nostr, super bullish on Bitcoin, super bullish on what things like Brian is building with Orange Pill app. So again, I think sovereignty is spreading around the world. The rise of the digital nomad is right now absolutely unstoppable. Again, just think about this for a minute. The internet kind of really started hitting its straps in the year 2000. We saw the tech bubble boom. Most people started to become familiar with the idea of a computer. Laptops were soon then invented. But in the year 2000, how many people were working remotely around the world? Let's say it was 0, okay? And between the years 2000 and 2018, there were 6 million digital nomads. So it took about, 18 years for 6 million digital nomads to emerge and say, you know what, adios, ciao. I'm out of my home country. I'm going to go and work remotely from a different country that actually treats me better and doesn't try to attack and milk and tax and trace my capital. But again, think about 2018. We talk about inflection points a lot, and I think 2020 was an inflection point for Bitcoin. But then in 2018, there was a massive inflection point of people leaving the West and going and moving their business and their jobs online and working remotely. And since 2018, we've seen 6 million digital nomads leave their home countries every single year. And today there's 35 million digital nomads. So again, we're talking about S-curves and S-curve adoptions. And just think about how many sovereign individuals are now escaping their Western countries and going and working remotely. Again, this is why I'm not only bullish on Bitcoin, but I'm also bullish on the overall digital nomad movement. Like, we are the fastest growing trend behind Bitcoin adoption. So again, a lot of people are like, they're looking at AI and it's like, I don't want to get too far off track, but so many people are saying, oh, AI is this technological revolution. It's the thing of the 21st century. No, it's not. It's Bitcoin and it's working remote. Like, those are the big exponential trends actually making really big impacts on government. So without getting too lost and going down too many different tangents, that's kind of my thoughts on the recent developments there with the
Love it, Luke. Love it. I'm sure we could go down that rabbit hole. Maybe next time you're on, we'll go down that rabbit hole. But we have a new rabbit hole to go down, and it is what Brian is working on over at Orange Pill app. And it might sound a little doomerish here, but I actually think it's kind of hopeful here, and it really kind of is a good piggyback off what Luke just said about Bitcoiners building community, sovereign individuals. So let's get into this last segment and let's chat about what the Orange Pill app is talking about, and rather not talking about, doing. They're an app of action here. So let's get into it.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io.
All right, Brian, let's start with what is Orange Pill app, and then of course talk about your new geo zapping feature, but how you guys are relating this to real world, environmental effects, like real world things happening in the news right now. So quick pitch. What is Orange Pill app for the new people that aren't familiar with it? And then let's talk about what you guys just did.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it definitely relates to the story we just did, because there's features and functions like I'm going to talk about today is the new Orange Pill app wallet that we did not want to build until the regulatory shift from this administration. Like building a wallet and seeing what happened to the Samurai guys or the Tornado Cash, like seeing what happens to these people, it is actually prohibitive. And there's countries that, like, if you build an app that has a Bitcoin wallet in it, like there's countries that I don't want to travel to right now because it's probably like unfriendly territory of like, you built an app that has this wallet. So that's the beautiful thing about the regulatory clarity, the release of tension around building wallets like this. But in a nutshell, Orange Pill app is just a social network to connect Bitcoiners. You don't need another social media. You have X, you have Nostr, you have YouTube and Rumble, which you can communicate to people through. If you want to meet Bitcoiners in real life, whether that's meeting up at events, whether that's finding the Bitcoiner that lives in your neighborhood that you want to go and grab coffee with, that's why Orange Pill app exists. It's the in real life component of Bitcoin. As things go to AI, and like Luke said, AI, whatever, I don't think it's it's going to impact the world, no doubt, but I don't think it's the biggest thing happening in the world, because what's going to happen is AI is going to do a lot of stuff for us. It's also going to just produce so much noise on the internet that the internet, I think, in the not too distant future is going to be unbearable. You're going to have a few spots you're going to land. You're going to land on Luke's show. You're going to land on Simply Bitcoin. You're going to go to a few brands that you know and trust. You're going to see what they have to say. And then you're going to want to get the heck out of the internet because it's going to be filled with so much noise. The last island of signal is going to be your in real life community. And so I think that's where you can find the alpha in Bitcoin, is by finding the real Bitcoiners that are around you. Like when I went to the Las Vegas conference last month, we organized an event for after one of the nights where all of the Orange Pill app people came, and we had a party. We got to hang out in real life with these people that it takes you from the abstract and the internet phase to the in real life and actual, like a handshake and a hug and eye contact and the special idiosyncrasies that make a real connection even that much more valuable. So while what we do here on the internet is important and it's part of the digital or it's a part of the future, the digital side, the physical connection, I think a lot of people are sleeping on how big the physical is going to be. And so we build tools for that. We earlier this year, our developers are freaking amazing. They built the coolest Bitcoin wallet, Lightning wallet out on the market right now. And why it's so cool is because it has functions that no other wallet can even possibly have. Because of the nature of Orange Pill app, we have wallets that are approximate geolocated. So you can turn on your location services and then find wallets that are in your proximity. Why would you want to do that? Well, if you want to spend Bitcoin with a Bitcoin business that accepts sats, I found my barber through there. I found my plumber through there. I found people in my community who I can exchange sats with for various goods and services. There's ranchers on there. Texas Slim, the big beef guy, you can buy beef from him that's clean, grass-fed from a regenerative farm. You can exchange sats with him because of the nature of in real life connections on Orange Pill app. And the really cool thing that is happening with this geo zapping. And so when I say geo zapping, I'm talking about being able to send sats because they're in a specific location. Think about the humanitarian efforts that are coming along with this. So you can go into Orange Pill app right now. You can type in Hunt, Texas, or you could type in Texas, and you can send sats to every single person in Texas. Well, why would you want to do that? Well, if you've been reading the headlines, you're also aware that there's a catastrophe going on. People are losing their lives. That there's flooding in Texas. And when natural disaster occurs or when man-made disaster occurs, the Orange Pill app wallet is one of the most beautiful solutions for sending sats so that the Bitcoin social layer, so you and I, the Bitcoiners of today, can send resources, can send sats permissionlessly across cyberspace to other Bitcoiners who need it. Because think about it, in these flooded areas, yes, FEMA is going to come in and they're going to eventually set up tents and they're going to eventually give these people a check for $700 to maybe buy them a few meals. That's going to happen in like 2 weeks by the time that money hits their account. In seconds, Bitcoiners from around the world can send sats to Bitcoiners who are in that area. and it's a revolution unlike ever before. We have over 17,000 Bitcoiners on the app. That number just continues to grow every day. So when we get to 1 million Bitcoiners that are on this app, the social dynamic and the amount of social resource that we're going to be able to send to people around the world when catastrophe happens, it's going to be quite possibly Bitcoiners are going to be the biggest humanitarian group in world history because we have tools like the Orange Pill app, Lightning Wallet, and the functionality of Bitcoin across time and space. What's being built here is game-changing, world-building, and I hope that people in the audience today want to be a part of that because it's something truly special, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah, no, it's honestly honest. It's incredible, and this wouldn't be the first time that you guys have literally helped areas in need. I'm thinking of the LA fires as well. You guys were a huge part of that. I know a lot of Bitcoiners were finding places to sleep at, you know, getting people to reach out and be like, hey man, I know you're in the area. Do you need somewhere to stay? Do you need some help? So it wouldn't be the first time that you guys have actually helped real world events. And it's honestly kind of incredible when you just like, we created a social app and then you realize, wait, the community aspect of this and helping people, that might be the real mission of Orange Pill app here, is just helping people around the world in need. And now with the geo-zapping, it's like, it's almost like when Zuck created Facebook, whatever you think his intentions were, it grew into something bigger than what it is. And this seems like one of those moments over here at Orange Pill app.
Yeah. It begs the question. Yes, Bitcoiners are going to be the people of the future who are the richest people because they have the best money and the best buying power. What happens when you connect these well-informed, conscious people who ask questions about power structures, but they also have a heart for other people? What happens when you bring those people together? Well, that's the experiment that we're running with Orange Pill app, is what is this going to fundamentally do to the future of humanity when the good people have power and social connectedness? I'm very bullish. People ask me all the time, what are you bullish about? I'm bullish about the Bitcoin price or the Bitcoin buying power because of what it's going to do for Bitcoiners and what we're doing with connecting Bitcoiners on the other side. Because it's one thing to have a bunch of, if you have 1 million Bitcoiners that are all rich, that's great because you have them cycling around in the world, hopefully doing good things. But when you take those 1 million people and you put them together, I think that the network effect of that has vastly more impact on the world. And like you said, the LA fires was another good example of that. We had a ton of activity through Bitcoin of people sleeping on people's couches or giving them their guest room for days or weeks at a time, simply because they reached out. Like Bitcoiners were doing that. Hey, I know I live 3 hours away from the fire. They were DMing other people that they knew lived in LA and said, hey, do you want to come stay at my house? Or, hey, I have an Airbnb down by the beach. So people were getting like vacation rentals for free while their neighborhoods were tragically burning down. And so, yeah, what are the impacts going to be of this as continue, whether it's man-made disasters or natural disasters of the future? Bitcoiners get to be part of that solution.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, Brian. And one thing I do want to echo, and I'm sure Luke feels something similar, but ever since I got into the Bitcoin space, obviously you have these connections online and usually you're like, these are really cool people, like-minded individuals, but everyone's on the internet. And then ever since I joined Simply, I basically moved and lived around Bitcoiners with Bitcoiners. And now like my whole life is just like all my closest friends are Bitcoiners. And so I know what the power is of building a network around you of like-minded individuals. And if you are out there and you're the sole crazy person that you know, I highly recommend getting on Orange Pill app so that you can build a local community of like-minded individuals that are also, you know, on the same plane as you. Like, it's really invaluable, that idea here. It's not just about your personal wealth going up, but it is about building a community around you of people that you can trust, that you know have the same ideas as you, that have the same ethos as you. And it is very lonesome when you're the sole crazy person. And by crazy, I mean lovingly and endearing. Like when you're the sole Bitcoiner, everyone thinks you're crazy. But when you get around other Bitcoiners, you realize like you're not the crazy one. And I think that power is really underrated, of just building like-minded individuals around you. And again, if you don't have that right now, like, I highly recommend getting on Orange Pill app and starting to create that. It's really an invaluable tool in your life. I'm by default Opti's friend. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. All right, Luke, you want to chime in here? I know you have something similar. You only hang out with Bitcoiners. You travel with them. That's all you know. So thoughts on this?
I have no normie friends. I cut them all out of my life. I haven't talked to or seen any of my like high school friends in many, many years. And again, nothing against them. I wish them happy birthday, but that's about it. So for me, I haven't gone back to Australia in 5 years. I've been traveling remotely for the past, 4 to 5 years now. I've just been a professional homeless bum, so to say. And again, I just travel from conference to conference. I've actually used Brian's app multiple times. I love the Orange Pill app. I use it at whatever conference I go to. So again, it gets the tick of approval from me. And again, I'm super bullish on meeting other Bitcoiners. I think in the Bitcoin space in particular, there's this obsession is the wrong word, but let's call it hyper focus on financial sovereignty. And again, I can say this because this was something that I learned about myself. In 2020, I thought I was the most sovereign kid going around, right? I've got my Bitcoin in self-custody, multi-sig, all this, all that. I'm hyper sovereign, right? This is how I thought of myself in 2020. Thought nothing could stop me. Then the whole lockdown shenanigan happened in Australia, and I was like, oh shit, hang on a minute. Yeah, I've got financial sovereignty, but that doesn't mean squat if I don't have geographical sovereignty, or if I don't have sovereignty over my own income. Again, I had a gym business at the time that I had to ask my government's permission to use. And I had friends around the world who I had to ask my government's permission if I could go and see them. And I wasn't allowed to do that for 2 years. I was locked in my prison cell in Australia. So again, financial sovereignty is great. And that's what Bitcoin's for. But again, I just remind people, think about your geographical sovereignty and think about taking sovereignty over your own revenue streams. So yep, I love traveling, go to every Bitcoin conference, as many as I can. And I do use apps like the Orange Pill app to connect with other like-minded individuals. Because like you said earlier, Opti, we are a little bit, let's call it different. We are very different.
To be fair, Luke, I've never seen anyone with that haircut. So
one of a kind. One of a kind. That's what I like to think. I tell you what, you don't see many of these at Bitcoin conferences anyway. I'm certainly one of the weirdest chaps going around with this haircut. But I will say, yeah, I think I'm bullish on Bitcoiners, and we are growing. Each conference I go to, there's more people each and every time. So yeah, I think go and shake some Bitcoiners' hands in person. Every time I go to a conference, I feel dead during those conference days, like just exhausted. But the weeks following that conference, I feel recharged, reinvigorated. It's nice to have those connections and like in-person Bitcoin conversations, but more broadly, like just conversations about, how we see the world and how that's evolving. So yeah.
Love it. All right, Brian. I'm gonna give you the final message here for the audience. Call to action, whatever you want. Last plug around Orange Pill app or life in general. You do have some good life advice here. So last plug. What do you want to tell the audience before we wrap up?
Never piss into the wind. No, I'm just kidding. No. Yeah, it's pretty basic, man. The life advice is the best things you do in life always involve other people in real life. The best moments of your life, the most magic moments, the things you look back on fondly, they involve other people. And so Bitcoin all-time high days are coming. These days are going to be magic. You're going to be euphoric, but I tell you what, there's so much more euphoric when you have other Bitcoiners that you get to sit around with and chat about it. Like your desire to find other Bitcoiners and go grab a beer or grab a coffee is going to be at an all-time high when Bitcoin is at an all-time high. So make those connections now. I know as Bitcoiners, sometimes we feel like, okay, I've stacked every sat I possibly can, and on Friday I'm going to stack some more sats because that's when my buy goes through. What else can I be doing? Well, interacting with Bitcoiners is critical. I'm a big proponent of the Bitcoin parallel economy. A lot of Bitcoiners don't want to spend their sats. I understand that. So the next best thing you can do is hang out with other Bitcoiners. How tragic would it be if Bitcoin goes to 100 million per coin, like Luke said? What was his bullish prediction? It was like,
it was 7 billion.
7 billion per coin. If Bitcoin goes to 7 billion per coin, and governments at some point, they say they get just super tyrannical with the exchanges because they know that they can control the off ramps, and you don't want to feed your family bug protein. You want to feed them good, clean beef, but yet you don't know somebody with whom you can spend your Bitcoin. Like, it doesn't matter how much value your Bitcoin has. If you don't have an off ramp for it, if your only off ramp is the exchanges, the government sanctioned exchanges, then you've limited your scope of how you can use Bitcoin. So the best thing you can do is build those connections right now. You don't have to go out and spend your sats. Just find and know other Bitcoiners. It's an insurance policy for the future. And I tell you what, it's just freaking fun. It's a good time along the way. And so, yeah, you want to be more proactive in Bitcoin, meet other Bitcoiners.
100%. Perfect way to send this off. Guys, Bitcoin is not just about a technology, a ledger. It's not just about the price. It's about the people and your sovereignty and your freedom. And part of that is building a resilient community around you. One day we'll get to the citadels. Until then, you got to have, you got to have your troops and the people behind you. So congrats on that, Brian. It really is incredible just to see how big Orange Pill app has grown and the real life impact that you guys have had in the community. So shouts out to you and Mateo and everyone over there working. Shouts out to all the devs, man. You guys are absolutely killing it. All right, guys, on that note, this has been Simply Bitcoin. Thank you for Luke for filling in last minute. Thank you, Brian, for coming on again. Always love having Brian on here. Guys, we will see you tomorrow. Same time as always, a little after 12:15 p.m. Eastern time when we go live. And of course, hit the subscribe button because we are dropping all kinds of fire content for you guys from Rustin, Dante, and Oceans. Literally no one else is doing what we're doing. We'll see you tomorrow, man. Peace out. This has been your boy Opti. We'll see you tomorrow.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.